Good evening, everybody, and welcome to V2, the Lab for Unstable Media. My name is Florian Weigel, and I work here as curator. And it's a pleasure welcoming you to this edition of Test Lab, The Function Creep. At this edition of V2's Test Lab, we'll explore the consequences of allowing smart devices constantly collecting our personal data. Through live experience and presentations of works, we'll look at whether or not these services provide a constant creepy side effect, or how deep we are in digital paranoia. First of all, I'd like to introduce Evelyn Austin from Bits of Freedom. Evelyn will be our critical respondent. As introduction, she'll sketch a theoretical outline of the function creep.
There's an entire ecosystem of things and services that the smart home can deliver once you have a rich map of the home that the user has allowed to be shared. Those are the words of the CEO of iRobot, Colin Engel. We've created a situation in which it's perfectly fine to not know or see what's going on. And these are, of course, the perfect circumstances for enabling function creep, the reason we're here tonight. So now we're in the age of big data. And the promise of big data relies on function creep. And so more and more often we're confronted with what I don't know how to explain it better than kind of an inverted function creep. So we're designing systems that have the widest possible use. We collect as much as we can under the broadest possible of terms of service. So the most common definition of function creep goes as following: the gradual widening of the use of a technology or system beyond the purpose for which it was originally intended. In the long run, however, I believe function creep will mean the gradual narrowing of the use of a technology or system. It will mean restriction and eventually regression. Hackers and artists are constantly exploring the boundaries of what is possible, taking the tools we have and using them in new contexts and in novel ways. And I'm looking forward to seeing some examples of that tonight.
Good evening. Which one first? Let's go with this one. So for this work, you need a little bit of background information. Basically, that is that your phone is constantly sending out signals that can be tracked. That's the bottom line. When you've been connected to a Wi-Fi network somewhere in the past, and your phone remembered the network, then wherever you go, your phone is sending out signals, basically asking, is this network here? Basically, when I create this network, your phone, if it knows the network, will connect to it. Which means that if I am able to see all these network names you've been connected to before, I can actually set up networks with those names and have your phone connect to it. So, trying to do something with this data, I built Linger, which is this device. And what this thing does is that it's basically a tracker. It's saving all this data from your phone. On the front, you see this number, which is 1284 at the moment. Then this is the amount of devices it has data on. So for trackers, it is as if a really large group of virtual people are still around this work. You can use a battery to power it, so it's just like a phone charger you can use for this. So you can take it with you to the store, for instance. And when you walk into the Albert Heijn, to them it's like 1,200 people come into the store at once. So to me, this is kind of like a tool that you can use to not only circumvent their tracking systems, but you can actively mess with their data. And because this has stored your data as well, I'm also messing with your profiles. So if I go to a store where you never go normally, thanks to this thing, they will actually think you've been there. The second one is also a tool to help people to actively do something about their online privacy and security. If owners of websites don't take the effort to actually use an encrypted connection and they only offer this non-encrypted version, then users have to find a way to prevent this leak of privacy. So they can use this device to actively train themselves not to use unprotected websites. This is a shock collar meant for dogs, normally, which I modified so you can use it over USB. And when you visit a website, a browser plugin is looking at the protocol being used, and if it's not a secure connection, it will zap you. So yeah, visit some website. You can visit the V2 website.
So easy. Okay. That was terrible.
So hopefully you will get this sort of Pavlov reaction at some point that you remember when you type v2.nl, you hit enter. Just before you hit enter, you think about this shock. And you don't visit it anymore.
I wondered if, as an artist, you have any maybe ethical dilemmas sometimes that you face when you're working on topics like these. Like, how far should you go?
Well, to playing like the technology that I'm using for these things is stuff you can just find online. Like half of it, of course, is just sort of copy-pasted from more theoretical things. But I think it's really important this way to show that how easy it is to do these kind of things. Like I always think, if I can do something like this, imagine what a hacker can do who actually knows his stuff.
And at the summer, Cyanne founded this idea of Telemagic, which was connecting a spiritual explanation towards technology we don't really understand. I mean, I think everyone experienced already this moment that you don't have any connection on your phone, just hold it up in the air, and it's already like some sort of weird religious ritual almost. So we connected these existing symbols of Wicca and paganism and occultism to technological systems. And now we have this magic mirror, which is a mirror with a Kinect in it. And it... magic is gone. No, it will scan you. And it will give you great compliments and all these kind of things. It will think of you. You're looking great tonight. Great.
You like veggies?
Very healthy, smart mirror.
I can explain the technical part, but obviously it's not really the point because it's more of a work that hints a lot of things that it could do. Well, it's sort of between where we are now and what it could do. So it scrapes a lot of data and from different websites, and basically it scans you when you stand in front of it, and then it switches to...
It scans what?
Your body.
My body.
3D data.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it turns on a profile, and you get a snapshot of the profile.
Yeah.
And then it pretends, no one gets angry, to send the data to third parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of adapted this one to the function creep idea. The whole idea of getting scanned by your mirror and using it as an interface or as kind of an avatar to enhance your capabilities as a human is, of course, something that already stayed in it. For this version, we made it a bit more like a sci-fi movie. In a way, we came up with this yesterday, I think, that we were feeling like we are directing a sci-fi movie in this one, because it has a lot more depth and a lot of more possibilities also, and it's a lot more connected than before.
No, because this already goes quite far. It's very, I would believe it.
Do you know what it does? I mean, that's...
No,
but that's exactly the thing,
No, but I do want to believe what it says.
Yeah.
But then it works.
Yeah, that's exactly the point we wanted to make. Thank you.
In a general line, what we are doing is researching the future of labor. So I'm speaking about manual labor, but also more and more forms of intellectual labor that are being replaced by algorithms, artificial intelligence, and especially we started looking more at the future scenario of how this is going to evolve. For the installation, we look particularly at Facebook, and we look at how this business of big data does not require us to create content in the traditional form of creating a Facebook post or liking a post or writing a comment, but just the simple action of observing and the way we do it. The core of the business model of Facebook is in the data that we are generating for them. This relationship is more of ourselves being the workers of these companies, being the unregulated, unpaid, largest workforce in the world that is now producing big data. Particularly, we started to look at how activities of our daily life, of things that we do every day, are starting to be quantified and monetized. The installation stores no data, and what it invites you to do is to perform a working shift of 2 minutes, scrolling down on your Facebook timeline. You don't have to create any kind of content or like anything, but you just have to place your phone on the mat and scroll down for 2 minutes. And there are two cameras on the installation, one of which is looking at your hand gestures. It's looking at this small action that we are doing every day, scrolling through our timeline. And it's looking also at what we see in Facebook. And the other camera is looking at your face and what kind of visceral responses you are having to the content that you are seeing. And at the end of the receipt, and what I think is interesting for us, we see a lot of discussion nowadays on whether the value of your data is different than the value of my data, because you are more popular in Twitter, so your data might be more valuable than mine. But this is in the current context of us being the users. But if we think about you and me as being the workers, it's not a matter of popularity or it's not a matter of the value of this data, but it becomes a matter of time. When you are working for a company, you are getting paid per hour. Now, in the Netherlands, the minimum wage, actually funny enough, I just found out that the Netherlands does not regulate per hour the minimum wage, but it regulates it per week or per month. So we had to make this calculation. That turns out you should get paid, at least if you are over 25, 9.95 euros per hour. So one working shift of 2 minutes will equal a payment of 33 cents, and the receipt invites you to demand that payment from Facebook as an invitation for all of you to consider what kind of steps you can do towards that kind of payment.
What do you think of strategies of kind of throwing off these algorithms by flooding them with noise?
I mean, it's now becoming one of the early classic solutions for this problem. I don't think it's the final solution, because I do think that some things might be done good with data and big data and even personal big data. But I think we should work for systems that in the end are way more equal in power position. So the people who put in data into a database system should also collectively have control over the data. So I'm fine, like, let's think of systems that we can actually use this for good of society, but then also the good should be really for society.
So I'm just going to talk to you a bit about my project, the Dark Age of Connectionism, which is here. The Amazon Echo is one of the forerunners, really, of a new range of home products which they call smart speakers as a field, and it's this strange little object here. And it's an interesting portal, right? What it's meant to do is that it's a voice assistant, so that you speak to it and you ask it things, like if you said, Alexa, why are you called Alexa?
My name Alexa comes from the Library of Alexandria, which stored the knowledge of the ancient world.
The Library of Alexandria stored the knowledge of the ancient world. What it does is, it listens for, it's always listening. It is always listening, and it's waiting for me or anybody else around it to say the word Alexa, at which point it lights up. And at that point, everything I say and every other sound around it is being sent through the internet connection this requires. So right now, literally everything I'm saying, until that light goes off, is being shipped to any one of Amazon's data centers spread throughout the world. 7 microphones. Note that none of this looks like a microphone. This doesn't, these look like microphones, which is why I've built this system to look like microphones. So what it does is it through all these 7 microphones, which are actually arranged in the same position as they are on the Echo itself, for those of you who care. And what the microphones do is every sound that passes into the microphone triggers a question to be asked to Alexa, which is the name they've given this this female-gendered. Yeah, look how smart it is. It's really smart. So the questions that get asked come out of this speaker here, and they're asked by Siri. So I just use the Siri text-to-speech service, which is part of OS X. Anybody can play around with it. It's a voice called Samantha. You can select on your OS X. The reason why I use Siri to ask these questions to Alexa rather than, say, a much easier to use text-to-speech system, which is fucking loads because it's a real pain in the ass, is because it allows me to get at these things that I'm really interested in. I'm not really interested in talking about how new and flashy technology is. I'm interested in talking about what the old power systems behind these technologies are.
Do you think there are ways to regulate these things? Is that a way to go, or should we be looking for solutions in a different area?
Yeah, there's a good question, and there's totally loads of ways you could have designed a project like this that did all that, right? That like did voice print analysis, because they do voice print analysis already, that does things like work out whether or not it should be listening to you. It'd be really easy to design that. I mean, like as easy as these things are to design, it's a complicated process, but you could do. The point is they don't, and they've got zero interest in doing that. So it's not that I would like to just like say for the record, I'm not against like voice assistant technology. It's like technology is good/bad all the time, you know. It's like there's nothing about this which is inherently evil, I think. But it is more about its application and who's behind this. And I think the who is a really kind of key question of what you're talking about. That it's specifically Amazon that have made their entire business model out of capitalizing at a very dense layer about our interests, as being anybody anywhere near the amazon.nl.co.uk.com websites and all the others. And these are the things that the work tries to get at. Is to think about not this as like this new flashy thing, but as this portal into very old power and the ways that we have to empower ourselves around these objects. And part of that is to try not to give them any kind of sonic information by being very quiet around them. Thank you.